always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Entertainment Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jessica, and I'll be sharing some of the top entertainment news that you just need to know right now at this very second. How is everybody doing tonight? I mean, it is quite the vibe right now. I am in the bedroom recording today as opposed to the office. My husband is having a much needed boys' night, so he is in the living room having a great time. If I was in the office, I would be right next to the living room, and you would be able to hear every laughter as they watch their fright movie. They're watching some sort of terrible horror movie. So you might be able to, who knows, maybe you'll be able to hear some of their laughter in the background. It's going to be a little difficult to escape. But anyway, I'm just sitting here in the bedroom. He is doing his much needed boys' night. He needs a break from me. That is for sure. I know when I am being too much. And I think we're kind of at this point because I have been talking nonstop about wanting another dog. Adopting a dog might not sound like a big deal to some people, but for us, we already have 2 dogs and a cat. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them because I love them and I am obsessed with them. So just like pretty much every other pet owner out there. So Francesco, we adopted when I first moved in, probably about 6-7 years ago now at this point. I moved in and he travels a lot for work, my husband, and I didn't want to be alone living in this new space. So I somehow convinced him to adopt this cat, and we drove about an hour and a half to go pick up the cat. And when we introduced him to one of my mother's friends, his name originally was Frisco, and we picked him up and she was like, "Oh, did you say Francesco?" And we're just like, "Yep, yes we did. Absolutely. His name is Francesco." And now he is Francesco the cat. I love him. I'm obsessed with him. And Mike never in a million years thought he would be a cat owner, but here we are. And then late summer 2016, we adopted a lab boxer mixed puppy and we named her Nora. They told us that she was a lab boxer, but I think they absolutely lied to us. I think she has some pit in her, which I think they were afraid to tell us in fear that we wouldn't actually go through and adopt her. And we also think she has a little bit of terrier in her. She's absolutely a mutt, but she's small. Like, she had small paws as a puppy, and she's a small adult dog, much smaller than we anticipated. She photographs really large, so people who see pictures of her and then actually meet her go, "Oh my God, she's so much smaller than we thought." And she is. She's tiny. She's a tiny little thing, and I love her so much. She is all muscle. I mean, her behind legs are just pure muscle. She's fast. She's a little she's fawn in color. I call her my little Marilyn Monroe. She's just so perfect. And then in December of 17, we adopted Wilson as a senior. So Wilson was absolutely love at first sight. He's actually sleeping. He's sleeping right next to me. And when I found him online through, I think it was like Pet Finder or one of those sites, I fell in love with him. He's a Yorkie Norfolk Terrier mix. And they found him on the side of a highway. So I had to have him, but the cost of shipping him up from the south was just too much of a financial risk for us because we didn't know how he was going to be with Nora and Francesco. And I didn't want to spend hundreds of dollars to bring him up and then have him ultimately not be a good fit. That wouldn't be fair to him. It wouldn't be fair to our animals. So we kind of just put it to bed, but I submitted an application just in case. And I didn't tell my husband I did that. And then about 2 weeks later, there was a dog adoption event about 40 minutes away from us. And it was with the company that Wilson was part of. And we decided we should go. They wouldn't tell us if he was going to be part of the shipment that was coming up or not, but we're like, we're going to go and we're going to see if he's there. And would you believe that when we walked through the doors, Wilson was in the first cage right up front, just curled up, wearing his little blue sweater, sleeping. They must have given him like an anti-anxiety medication or something for the drive because it's so long. So he would like sleep because he was really lethargic. And I fell in love. One of the staffers was like, would you like to hold him? And I was like, absolutely. And they put him in my arms. And I was like, well, these are my arms forever. Like, you're mine. And my husband just looked at me. He's like, are you sure you want to do this? And I just looked at him and said, yes, I do. So Mikey went out and bought a collar and a little name tag for him. His original name was Starburst H. Wilson, and we just dropped the Starburst H, and now he's just Little Willie, and he's my Chilson Wilson, and I love him so much. Again, he's right next to me, so you might hear him growl or maybe bark, but that's okay. He just wants to be part of the show. But anyway, I am kind of getting ahead of myself. This is not a pet podcast. I think I did that with books last time, but whatever. I love my animals. Then I thought maybe there's another one. I saw a dachshund online that I really want. His name's Charli or Charles. He's an adorable dachshund, and I've always wanted a dachshund, but I don't know if now is the right time to bring another animal into this home. We just live in a small condo. I just don't know if it would be the best fit at the time. Maybe who knows? Anyway, should I get a dog? Let me know. Like, shoot me a DM or something and let me know if I should get this puppy dog. It's a rescue, so we would be doing a lot of good. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. We have so much to talk about today. It's, like I said, today's going to be much more just conversational. We're going to be talking about and the E! News Network. That has some big shocking news. I'm going to discuss what happened with there. We're going to talk about the longevity of TikTok stars and how they are going to be influencers and what their career journey could look like down the road. And then we're also going to talk about a new documentary that came on Disney Plus called Howard. I watched this yesterday, and when I tell you I was a puddle of tears when it ended, like, that would be an understatement. This was so good. So we're just going to talk about that. And then in honor of Howard and Disney Plus, at the very end of today's episode, I'm going to share with you my top 5 favorite Disney animated movies. There's some on there that I don't think people have seen or expect to be on there. So it's kind of a surprising list. And I'm going to tell you why I think they're so good and why, if you haven't seen them, you should definitely go see it. And then if you have seen it and you feel like you're the only one who's seen some of these movies, you are heard. I see you and I hear you, and we can talk about it together. So again, stay tuned till the end of the episode. So right now, let's just dive right on into topic number 1. Let's talk about TikTok. I mean, TikTok has been everywhere recently in the news. I know the president has tried to ban it. I think this might be the second time TikTok has been threatened to be deleted from the United States, whatever. And then we also have Instagram Reels that just came out, which is basically the copy-paste version of TikTok onto Instagram. But anyway, TikTok is taking the world by storm, especially this year with everyone having all of this free time on their hands. And you're basically creating these short videos to music, clips from TV shows, other TikToks. There's like challenges, and everyone seems to be on TikTok, from everyone in Gen Z all the way to Gordon Ramsay, who, quite the surprise, did not expect to see him on my For You page, but I am loving it. And then there's creators such as Addison Rae and Charli D'Amelio, and other TikTok users and stars are getting more than just likes these days. They're actually making some really serious money, like up to $5 million. Like, that is a lot of change for doing weak little dances in your bedroom. Addison Rae has found herself falling into a crowd of a lot of famous people, including Kourtney Kardashian and her children, Mason, Penelope, and Rain. She's actually, I think it looks like she's like staying with them for some time. They're like constantly posting with each other on Instagram. And you even see some of Courtney's children on Addison's TikTok. Of course, that's the word I'm looking for. And I guess what is happening is Courtney is giving Ray just some like advice on how to deal with being in the public eye, which is fine. But I kind of think this whole relationship is kind of weird. Like Addison Rae, she's 19, Courtney is 40. It's one thing to give advice, but then to basically be living together is kind of odd to me. Courtney makes like such a big deal of being on like keeping up with the Kardashians and how much she doesn't want to work and she doesn't want to put this time in, and like being famous is just so exhausting, and wow, like this whole woe is me story about how difficult her life is being in the public eye. But then now she is positioning herself next to this extremely famous TikTok star. So like, what are you doing, Court? Like, are you in or are you out with this whole fame game? Courtney also famously like doesn't want Mason or her children to have a TikTok, but then they're living with this TikTok influencer, and then they're on TikTok because they're on Addison Rae's TikToks. So I don't understand. Like, is this I think this could be a ploy to promote her lifestyle brand Poosh, which is just a weird knockoff of Goop. Just something isn't adding up to me. Like, I'm wondering if Courtney's Poosh just like isn't really that successful with millennials, considering that like the whole shtick with millennials is that we're all drowning in student debt. Like, how are we going to spend all this money on like these expensive items that Courtney's like, you should buy this cream for your eyes and you should buy this for your diet? Like, it just doesn't make sense. So maybe she's trying to capture this Gen Z audience who might not have that same like, oh, I need to go to college and then get all of this debt and then not be promised a job. I mean, especially with everything that's going on. So maybe she thinks they're going to have more disposable income in the future and then like give into her lifestyle brand, because it just doesn't make sense to me why Courtney is just chilling with a 19-year-old. I think it's weird. Like, don't you think it's weird? I cannot be the only person who thinks that way. But anyway, let's move. I have to move on from this or else I'm going to drive myself crazy thinking about it. But anyway, this whole new age of influencer, like Instagram, which was like the holy mecca for influencers, launched their version of TikTok, which is Reels. And like I said, it's basically a copy paste of TikTok onto Instagram. So Reels can show up in your feed, or they have its own like discover page and you can scroll through it vertically, just like you can on TikTok, as opposed to horizontally, which is where you would scroll for stories. I mean, Instagram's doing like IGTV, which was IGTV is basically a knockoff of YouTube, and stories is basically a knockoff of Snapchat. I mean, Instagram really isn't the most creative platform for creatives, but you know, here we are. Everyone uses it. It's very curated and people put a lot of time into that and they want a very cohesive feed. And then your stories have to be compelling. And then now not only are there stories, but then there's Reels. So which is like, I guess a looser, less curated version of what you would put on your stories. I'm not really sure, but they're definitely trying to take this TikTok audience either back on Instagram or something for their own influencers, another way for them to promote to their audience and to generate more income. But anyway, so that's interesting what's going on. It's just the wars of the social media wars, right? Like you have the streaming wars for television. I feel like this is the social media wars. But then I'm curious to see how these TikTokers are going to like monetize their skills, right? Like, so if you go on TikTok and you do say some sort of branded content with vocals, someone else, like say just me, I can take that audio and do my own, but I'm not going to get paid. So like, there's no really interest for me doing it, but you know, it just kind of gets kind of shaky. Where's the line on how to advertise? But you know, a lot of these people aren't just using TikTok to make money. They're branching out, such as Dixie D'Amelio, who just landed a record deal with L.A. Reid's Hitco Entertainment, which they also signed Jennifer Lopez and Outkast Big Boy on their label. So this 18-year-old social media sensation has 15 million followers on Instagram and 33 million followers on TikTok. So on July 1st, she debuted her single Be Happy, which has already on YouTube gained 63 million views. And again, she just released that. Like, those 63 million views do not belong to a label. Like, that's all her. Like, that's very impressive. So what's good is she's kind of getting into something, I'm very loosely going to say, more stable than TikTok. So she has a backing now and she has a support, and she's so young and her followers are so young. These Gen Zers are so young and they seem pretty ride or die. Like, they're gonna stick with her. So she really has this opportunity to grow with her audience. And I think if she leverages that correctly, she can have a very lucrative career. So as opposed to just doing these little dance moves in your bedroom, like how long can you do that? How can you sustain that? Like, okay, 5 million, I mean, invest correctly and you could be good for a long, long time for life, right? But if not, if you're young and you're just spending this money on this and spending it on that, and you're not making the right moves for your future, that's where it gets kind of dicey. So I'm very interested to see how these TikTok stars are going to move forward, how they're going to leverage their career and the opportunities given to them. You know, some have these makeup deals, like I discussed on the last podcast, like something that everybody seems to be doing. But I think having a record deal is really great. I'm really, really curious to see what happens. I love TikTok. None of these women that I've talked about ever came onto my For You page. I guess I'm in just some other side of TikTok. I actually don't get a lot of dancing videos. I get a lot more cooking and a lot more, I'm still deep in Hamilton TikTok, which is kind of sad, but they're also funny. Like, they make me laugh. Anyway, so that is that on TikTok and everything that's going. I'm really anxious to see what is happening moving forward. I'm anxious to see if Reels gets off the ground, how successful that is. I used it once. It's pretty user-friendly. Is it as user-friendly as TikTok? I don't think so. Like, the search for sounds isn't as easy, where TikTok, it's super, super easy. So I'm sure that's going to be changed in the future since it's brand new. It just came out this week. But I will keep you updated. We'll see how the whole TikTok fame thing goes. So far, so good for these creators, you know? But coming up next, a big, big story. We're going to be talking about E! News and its sudden cancellation. We're also going to talk about Howard on Disney Plus. Again, one of the best documentaries I have seen in a long, long time. Really emotional, really good. And then at the very end, in honor of Howard on Disney Plus, I'm going to talk about my favorite top 5 Disney animated movies. This does not include Disney Pixar. This is just Disney animation. There's some on there that I don't think everyone has seen. And if you have seen it, then just know that you are seen. I see you and I hear you. I'm really excited to go through the list. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back, my friends. I am sitting here with Chilson Wilson by my side. I wish you can see him. He's so cute, curled up. Oh God, he looks like a little teddy bear with a little black beady eyes, no black nose. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little segment about TikTok. I'm curious to see what you think the longevity of these TikTok stars are going to be. So send me a DM. Let's discuss. Let's talk about it. I am not on TikTok yet. I am still running all of this off of Instagram. Be sure to follow, and we can chat. We can have a conversation. That stuff would be kind of fun. Anyway, let's move on to the next big story. This is a huge story from the week. After 29 years of being on the air, E! News has been canceled. This includes Pop of the Morning and In the Room. Daily Pop and Nightly Pop will still air. The show has been canceled due to financial fallout caused by the coronavirus pandemic. E! News was hosted by Liliana Vasquez and Scott Tweedy, with the pair also serving as hosts for E's Pop of the Morning alongside Victor Cruz. In the Room was hosted by Jason Kennedy. The restructuring happening at NBC Universal is in line with their announced plans at the end of June to, quote, focus on streaming and away from traditional television. That's really, really interesting, and I'm going to give some more of my opinion on that later in this segment. All three shows are currently based in New York City. E! News officially relocated from Los Angeles last year, but the network's future in-studio productions will reportedly return to the West Coast. Personally, I think moving the show to New York was one of the network's biggest mistakes. I don't understand how a show that is built around the entertainment industry and celebrities was taken out of Los Angeles and placed in New York. That makes zero sense to me. Absolutely zero. It's like having a show dedicated to Broadway musicals based in Los Angeles. That would never happen because it would make absolutely zero sense. So I understand the hustle and bustle of New York City and the iconic NBC Studios building, and it's alluring, and it's that whole, if I can make it here, I can make it anywhere attitude. But you're already made it in Los Angeles. There's no need to go to New York. Another thing that I believe worked against them with this is E! News used to air, when it was out in Los Angeles, it would air at 7 p.m. And then when it moved to New York, the time slot became 7 a.m. What? How does that even make any sense? What network executive decided to do that? I'm curious. I really want to know. And I would love to sit down and have a little convo and kind of pick their brain, because that is ludicrous. So, I understand that the show is tailored to entertainment, and that generally brings in a much younger audience. So I also don't know, with that in mind, why you would do 7 a.m. 7 p.m. is perfect, because if you're done school or classes or work or whatever, you come home and you sit and you can watch with your mom or your dad or your friends and just kind of unwind after a long day and listen to a little mindless celebrity news, have a glass of wine, enjoy. And then you have a full day to curate news for the airing at 7. I don't know. So the time slot thing just did not make any sense to me. And then also you basically have 3 shows about the exact same thing. It's all the same news, all about the same celebrities in one day. Take the Daily Pop and the Nightly Pop and just merge them together. Let's just say we're going to call it the Pop. Bring the 2 together. There's no need to have 2 different shows. And by merging it into one, and it's more cost effective, and it just makes more sense. How many times is E! News going to talk about Ellen? We can only talk about it so many times. I get it. And you're giving me hours and hours and hours of the same news just on repeat, on this crazy cycle. It's just not needed. So that was an issue, in my opinion. Also, again, in my opinion, none of these shows need to be quote, live. There's no need. With how quickly the internet Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, gives us entertainment news. It's all mostly in real time anyway, and a live production is not necessary. I can't imagine the audience watching the show doesn't already know a majority, if not all, of the news that they're presenting in any of their segments. Like, they already know. So the fun of entertainment news isn't so much about the news itself. It's about the anchors, or the hosts, anchors. It's about the hosts and like their hot take on everything that's going on. It's about how you tell the story. It's not about the news itself. Like, give me a host that has an opinion on what's happening with Ellen and not something super diplomatic like you're giving me every hour on the hour, And then on top of that, I have to just like look at my notes because I just have so many thoughts about this. So like, you can do just a nightly recap on, let's just say, the pop, and you can just recap what's been happening in the news, even if it's news from the day before. It doesn't have to be breaking. Like, no one in your audience is going to be watching and be like, oh, well, 3 minutes before the pop started, Kanye went on a Twitter rampage, and why aren't you talking about it? Like, no, they're watching everything go down live on other things. Like, our attention is going while we're watching pop or anything on E. I guarantee you we're all scrolling on Instagram as well at the same time. So you're not telling us anything new. Just give us your opinion on things. That's much more interesting. Again, just like reviewing my notes to make sure that I didn't miss anything. To that point, I did write how, again, we know everything already. So it's kind of like Keeping Up with the Kardashians, which is arguably the best show on E. Arguably. So we all know what kind of happens with this famous family. We're all aware of it because of just, news leaks or whatever Kris Jenner wants to feed to the paparazzi. But the whole point of watching the show, even though we know what happens, is seeing how the sisters respond, how the family responds. And that's all I'm asking from my entertainment news that I am watching. Be fun, be bold, have opinions. Another thing that was a downfall for E, again, in my opinion, my humble opinion, and this story is actually a few years old. So if you don't know it, I'm going to tell you. But there was a huge pay dispute with Kat Sadler. So she left E! News Network because she felt as though she was not getting paid fairly to her male counterpart. She found out that he was making almost double what her salary was, and she wanted to remain part of E! Like it was her lifelong dream to work. Like she's always wanted to work for the network, and she had this incredible job, and she turned it down because out of her morals, she was like, I'm not going to sit here and not be compensated for what I'm worth. They were basically doing the exact same job, and E! Came back and said, well, no, you're not. And she's like, well, yes, I am. And she penned this whole article and put it on her blog, and that just left a stain on E! That I do not think they were able to really recover from. I think again, I'm pretty sure that a majority of your audience is female that are sitting down and watching. And once you have that type of bad publicity, that isn't any publicity is good publicity. That is just terrible. She tried to negotiate with them. They said no. And she wrote, how can we make it better for the next generation of girls if we don't stand for what's fair and just today? I mean, good for you, girlfriend. Like, I completely respect her for walking away from that, walking away from such a great opportunity. It just wasn't worth it. Her and her counterpart that she doesn't mention, so out of respect, I'm not going to mention, but you can go Google it, find out for yourself. They started at the same time and they grew at the same time. I think they were just like, there was one show difference of what they were doing, but other than that, everything was pretty identical. Their workload was identical. She's a single mom, 2 kids. She sacrificed so much. And then to find out that you're not getting paid fairly. And then when you ask for the raise, they're just like, No. And then they tell you that you don't do as much as your male counterpart. Oh, I don't think so, E. Wasn't a smart move. I think from then I would love to look at the numbers because I'm curious to see if from that is when they really saw like this downclick of audience viewership and like why things weren't working. I mean, they try to do so much with all of these shows and they don't give it enough time to work itself out. But I don't think they ever would. I don't think they would work out. I think that they just weren't keeping up with the times and they really just shot themselves in the foot with the whole Kat Sadler situation. But I want to get back to the part where I discussed how NBC said like they're kind of moving away from regular television. And I think that's really interesting. And we're seeing that a lot with the whole streaming wars. How networks can kind of create this like a la carte experience. Say, look at Peacock or HBO Max. I mean, we can choose as viewers what we want to watch. And then there are, through social media, such as like Facebook or Instagram, things become viral. Like, oh, have you seen Stranger Things? And everyone's watching Stranger Things. So you want to watch Stranger Things. So you're going to download Netflix to watch Stranger Things. So if all of these networks create an app that you pay for, so it might be like, oh, $4.99 a month may not seem like much, but then all of a sudden you're paying for a bunch, but you're kind of curating what you want. But say E is like, well, we're going to have this amazing, amazing show that you pay for. And as long as you have one and you get those viewers, like that'll completely change the game. So I'm curious to see if moving forward, say the children that are being born today, right? Or if like under 5, if by the time they're adults, is there going to be regularly scheduled programming on television? Or is it going to go back to how it was in the olden days, back a little bit before when I was a kid, but it was like when it was just 3, 6, and 10. And I'm wondering if it's going to go kind of back to that. Just that basic cable, all that's going to be on there is the news. And that's it. Everything else is going to just be, like I said, a la carte app streaming services. So I'm really curious to see how all of this is going to play out. Again, a lot of this podcast is here's some news and let's speculate what's going to happen in the future. So that is everything on E that I think you need to know, stuff that you can think about. Let me know what you think. What do you think is the future for E? You know, what's going to happen without E! News? Is it still going to be as celebrity focused? Are they going to do more shows like Keeping Up with the Kardashians? So there's a lot to think about there. But coming up, I am going to be talking about Howard, which is a new documentary on Disney Plus. And yes, I think it deserves a full segment because it was that good and that beautiful. And then after that, in honor of Howard, I am going to go through my top 5 favorite animated Disney movies. Again, this is not including Pixar. That is a whole nother thing that we could talk about. That's another list. So stay tuned and we will be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, my friends. I am still sitting here curled up in my bedroom with little Wilson by my side. The boys are still out there watching their fright, and we're just kind of vibing right now. It's just a very laid back episode today. We're kind of relaxing. I hope you're relaxing wherever you are. Maybe you're driving, don't relax too much. Maybe you're also chilling in bed, just kind of unwinding after a long day. We just talked about TikTok and e-news and like how the world is changing with influencers and television. And I want to talk, kind of staying on that theme of changing the world. I really want to take a moment and talk about the new documentary on Disney Plus called Howard. I mean, Disney Plus came on the scene as a streaming service, and it was just quite the hit. I mean, they have been knocking it out of the park, you know, with The Mandalorian that they have. I mean, also with streaming, Hamilton really saved us during this quarantine. And then now with this documentary called Howard. What an absolutely incredible story of Howard Ashman. And we all kind of know Alan Menken from watching Disney movies, but Howard Ashman, what a phenomenal story. And he really did change the world. He changed the world for Disney. I mean, I can't even imagine what Disney would be today if it weren't for him. So this, for any Disney fan listening, if you haven't watched it, I urge you to. If you are just an average Disney fan, I urge you to watch it. If you don't really understand the Disney hype, like as an adult, then I urge you to watch it. It's so well done. It is so compelling. I was sobbing by the end of it. And I just kind of want to break it down. I don't want to give too much away. Again, this is much more conversational and, you know, just kind of starting this dialogue and talking about the impact that Howard had on the Disney universe. So if you're a fan of Disney, I mean, the opening 3 minutes is just so spectacular. You have this full orchestra in a sound studio, and you're just watching them all kind of like practice and like play with the strings, and it just opens up, and then all of a sudden you see Paige O'Hara, and she's being instructed on how to say quiet in a quiet village, you know, from Beauty and the Beast. And Howard is explaining to her exactly how he wants her to say the word quiet, how to sing it. And that's how it opens up. And we learn, it does the whole flashback, and we learn about his childhood and how much he loves storytelling and what he would do with his toys and kind of take them and make them his own. So he would have like these little cowboy and Indian figurines, and he would paint them, or he would add like drapes on them made out of like, say, napkins, and he would turn them into these other characters other than what he was given. And he would create whole stories, and he would bring his sister in and be like, look, here's this scene of this happening, and here's another scene of that happening. And he would just create this world and bring people in, and he just really wanted to share that. And he ended up, you know, trying to have this relationship with his dad that was like very typical, like just like more quote manly, like go fishing and play sports. Never really wanted to do that. And then at age 6, he saw his first play, and you know, the rest is kind of history. You kind of know where it's going. He gets really involved in theater, and he loves it. And he loves musical theater, and he loves telling a story like through the lyrics of music. And even though he never played any sort of instrument, he knew exactly what he wanted everything to sound like in his head. And one thing that I learned from this documentary that I didn't know was Howard wrote the musical lyrics for Little Shop of Horrors. And the whole story of that is so fascinating, because I didn't know that Little Shop of Horrors was just this movie that was made, rumored to be in 2 days, using parts like these stages from another production, and it was this spoof on horror movies, and he really wanted to turn that into a musical. And one of the things that was fascinating about it and why he thinks it was so successful is because he took something that seemed silly, right? And he's like, I'm going to take this and put it on the stage. And I'm trying to think of like the best way to word this. He tells the story as he saw the story, if that makes sense. And so that's why it's like kind of campy and it's a little silly, but then that's why the music works, because it's not serious. Because if you do something, say like West Side Story, and they start singing, the willing suspension of disbelief, you really have to buy into the fact that they were singing. But because this was more cartoony, right, you can kind of get away with the musical numbers. And it was such a success on the stage. And then they made it a film, and it still worked. It translated really well into film. But the one thing that Howard didn't want is he didn't want Little Shop of Horrors to go from this small intimate theater into this large theater. He thought that it wouldn't work that way. You need it to be small and you need it to be intimate. And it goes through like the lyrics and how they work. It's just absolutely fascinating. So then then it kind of goes into how he became partnered with Disney. And Howard is the one that brought Alan Menken in. And again, a lot of us know Alan Menken, especially if you're a Disney fan, you recognize the name, you've seen the name, because he's done a lot more Disney films than what's presented with Howard and that whole story. So he got hired to do The Little Mermaid. He's the one who decided that, or made the suggestion that Sebastian should be Jamaican. He helped design Ursula, like what he envisioned her to be from like all the sketches. Like they made a bunch of sketches, then he walks in and he's like, no, I think this. And then you have her song and like the process of Ariel meeting Ursula. When Ariel meets Ursula, you have no idea really who Ursula is. And then by the end, Ariel's giving her voice to this woman. And you talk about the journey of the song and the lyrics and what they do to add character. He says that the last place to do Broadway musicals is in animation. And like I said before, the reason Little Shop and the musical worked out was because of how cartoonish it was. So Howard felt that he could really, really do so much with animation and with Disney. And Disney trusted him. And he had a lot of freedom. And he was very demanding with what he wanted. But it was because he knew what he wanted. And what's heartbreaking about the story is he tests positive for HIV, and he's so young. He's so young, and he's working on The Little Mermaid. He's working on Aladdin. He's working on Beauty and the Beast. And the only one, I believe, that he saw completely through is The Little Mermaid. And when he went to Walt Disney World and Disneyland and saw the parade with The Little Mermaid, he was so emotional from that, and it's because he realized that The Little Mermaid was going to outlive him. He felt like he really did something really great with that, and he believed it. And so he put that same belief into Aladdin and into Beauty and the Beast. Peter Schneider, the former president of Disney Animation, has this amazing quote saying that great artists give you a way of looking at the world that you've never seen before. And the way they do that is by showing you their world. And he says that that is how Howard went about his business. And that's how he wrote. And he was so passionate about it. And he really wanted you to understand. And because he felt empathy for these characters, he wanted the audience to feel empathy for them. And he really understood the art of storytelling, where if you take a word or if you take a phrase out of a song, then the whole thing doesn't make sense. I mean, he petitioned to have the song Part of Your World from The Little Mermaid to stay into the movie, because he knew that even though it was a slower song and that there was a chance for kids to be uninterested and to start like losing losing focus of the film, he knew that in the long run that was such an important part of Ariel's journey. And then at the end, it became such a pivotal part. And it's one of the most remembered scenes of the film. Again, he tests positive for HIV, and his career was cut short. His life was cut short. And that is so devastating. And I say that because we all look, at least as millennials, and I'm not sure about other generations, but definitely us, we have this affinity for Disney. We feel this connection to it and the movies. And there was this Disney renaissance that happened with The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin. And it was because of the partnership between Howard Ashman and Alan Menken and their partnership and how well they worked together. And I wonder, what would the world of Disney be like if he had kept going? He was, 39, 40 years old when he passed away? I mean, that is so young. And he had this successful early career. Right now, there's this trend going around, and it's a great trend, and I'm not knocking on the trend at all. But there's the trend going around that we should normalize realizing your dreams and chasing your dreams in your 30s. Like, you don't have to know exactly what you want to do at 16. But what if Howard didn't know? Would Disney have gotten this resurgence that it had, this renaissance, and create these iconic films and songs that we all know and love today? I mean, we're very lucky that he realized what he wanted to do and he just did it. One of the most astonishing things I got out of the documentary is that the song Prince Ali was written while Howard was in a hospital bed. I mean, that type of dedication is truly, truly remarkable. This is just a beautiful showcase of the stars aligning and bringing certain people together to create amazing things. Again, the Disney canon would not be what it is today if it wasn't for Howard and everything that he did. So if you want to be inspired, and if you want it's to feel good and then be kind of like knocked down, if you want that feel good nostalgia, I highly, 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 highly recommend this documentary. It's really beautiful. It brings you back to your childhood. I mean, seeing Angela Lansbury in a studio singing Be Our Guest was just so thrilling to see, like Mrs. Potts singing. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's inspiring. Like I said, it's nostalgic. It really makes you think about how the world works, you know, and how things work out in your life. And I feel like Howard really had so much to say, and he knew he didn't have a lot of time to say it. And maybe that's the driving force of why in these 3 Disney movies, they're just such good, powerful songs. I mean, do we get that type of power in any other Disney movie? I think from there we get Elton John with The Lion King, but nothing really comes close to those 3. And again, truly remarkable, absolutely spectacular. Please watch it. Let me know what you think. Go on Instagram, Twitter, send me a DM. Let me know how you feel about the documentary. I guarantee you're going to love it. I really don't know how you don't. Again, you can be a skeptic of the Disney like phenomenon, or you could be a diehard. It's just really wonderful, really good stuff. And because of that, I am going to go on and discuss my top 5 favorite Disney animated movies. And yes, Aladdin is on there. But where? Where does Aladdin lie? You'll have to stay tuned to find out.
Golden State Media Concepts bring you Book Review Podcast, a haven for bookworms of all ages and the widest genres, from mystery to memoirs, romance to comedy, fantasy to sci-fi. If you love to read, this is the podcast for you. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Book Review Podcast.
And welcome back, my friends. You stayed with me. Hello. Let's talk about my top 5 favorite Disney animated movies. Again, this does not include any Pixar. That is a list onto its own. That is its own separate thing. I can talk about Up all day long. Again, these are my top 5 favorite animated Disney movies. So we're going to start with number 5. And again, we'll talk about Howard. It is The Little Mermaid. And honestly, I think the main reason it is on the list, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, which is what I always want to do, Prince Eric is my favorite Disney prince. Hands down. There's no contest. You're wrong with any of your other opinions. It's Prince Eric. I love him. So there's that. So that aside, the music by Howard, Poor Unfortunate Souls is just a masterpiece. I don't think any Disney villain, well, maybe Scar, but I think that is one of the best Disney villain songs out there. Scar does have a good one, but more on that later. It's a great story. A lot of people can find it problematic, which I guess I get where you're coming from, but I don't agree. So it's a fun tale. I really like the message of a girl who wants more than what she has, and she understands what she does have is good, but what she thinks is out there is better. And she does what she needs to do to get there. Does she make a mistake and sell her voice? Of course. We've all made mistakes. I'm not going to judge her for that. Did she fall in love with a boy in a second? Sure. But so have I. And probably so have you. So no big deal. It just happened to work out with her. So it's somewhere we've all been. And so I'm not going to falter for it. She learns how to walk. She learns a new skill. That's fantastic. I think Sebastian is a great character. I think the lyrics in Under the Sea are just funny and clever. Again, yay Howard Ashman. So that is why The Little Mermaid is on the list. Again, mostly because of Prince Eric. So moving on, number 4. This one, I don't think a lot of people are going to see coming, but I think there is a small group of you out there that understands what I am talking about. Number 4 is The Great Mouse Detective. That's right. There is a Disney movie called The Great Mouse Detective. And if you have not seen it, I strongly urge you to watch it. If you like Sherlock Holmes, you will like The Great Mouse Detective. The Great Mouse Detective is Sherlock Holmes. It is so good. Ratigan is fantastic. The song Ratigan is also fantastic. So it follows Basil of Baker Street, and it's Sherlock Holmes. It's excellent. There's the Queen Mouse. They're all little mouse living in London. Like, he's in 221B Baker Street. It's just really clever. It's very dark. I don't understand why I liked it so much as a child. It is a little slow moving. There's 2 songs, I think, in the whole movie, but it's really good. It's funny. I think the character of Ratigan is just a funny looking character, at least when I was a child. I rewatched it again in college and I was like, yep, this is still freaking fantastic. So I I really like it. It's different. The animation is really different. It's very old school. You like the weird like pen drawings. It's very good. I highly suggest it. Please go watch it. Report back. You'll like it. And for those of you who already know about it, watch it and love it. What's up? I see you. So number 3, this is a little controversial. Some people don't like that it's number 3. I think a lot of people would say it should be number 1. It is The Lion King. Elton John did a great job with this film. The songs are catchy. The Broadway production is just absolutely breathtaking. The movie, you laugh, you cry. I mean, I still cry when Mufasa dies. Still. How many times have I seen this movie? A lot. And I'm a grown adult right now. And I still cry. I cried in the movie theater when I saw it. I cried at home when I brought it home on VHS when I saw it. Again, I cried when I went to my friend Victoria's house and we watched it. It's just a brutal moment. And listen, all Disney movies have their brutal moments. There's something about Simba trying to wake up his dad that just crushes your soul. But anyway, enough with the sad stuff. Timon and Pumbaa, fantastic comedic duo when he does little like luau to get the attention from the hyenas. Fantastic. The hyenas are great. Scar, what a great villain. I love how it's basically a Shakespearean play. I think that everything about the movie is just absolutely stellar. It's beautiful. The songs are fantastic. Again, it's great. I don't like how when the DVD came out, they added that song that Zazu sings with the Morning Report. That really takes me out of it. Really does. But everything else is fantastic. So that is why it makes the list. But it is not number 1 because there are 2 others that I think are a little better. So number 2, again, not a lot of people will agree with me, but I have my reasons, so hear me out. Number 2 is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I love this movie. Oh my God, there's something that's not on the list. Oh my God, I just thought of it. Okay, so it's going to take number 1. It's got to. Oh, sorry. Okay, so back to number 2. So number 2, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I never related to like a Disney princess growing up. I didn't look like any of them. I just didn't relate to them. I never had like the Belle costume or the Cinderella costume or the Snow White costume. But you know what costume I did have? I had Esmeralda's. I saw myself in her, and I didn't see myself in a lot of other Disney characters. So I like that. I love how she stood up for justice, and I love how much she loved Quasimodo and respected him and their friendship. And I'm gonna give you another reason why it's on my list, and it's such a silly reason, and it's such a geeky reason, is because the voice of Quasimodo is Tom Hulce. And Tom Hulce plays Mozart in my favorite movie of all time, Amadeus. And there are moments in The Hunchback of Notre Dame where I could totally hear like full Tom Hulce with like his giggle. And for that, I love it. I just think I think the message of Hunchback is really positive. Again, it's a very dark Disney movie. It hits on a lot of really sensitive and awful subjects, but the overall message is really positive and really good. And again, Esmeralda just standing up for justice. I think we all should relate to her right now. So that is why it is number 3. All right. So number 1, I'm going to tell you what was number 1. And I'm going to tell you what is now number 1 because I am so foolish. So number 1 was Aladdin, and I love Aladdin. I have many great memories with Aladdin. It is one of the best, but I'm going to have to, because I failed you, I'm going to have to replace it at the last minute, and I'm going to tell you what's going to win. And it's a Goofy movie. That's right. It is a cult classic and a cult favorite. Not everyone has seen it. My husband has yet to see it, and I don't know why I haven't forced him to watch it. Powerline is a powerhouse. What an excellent Disney movie. I don't believe it was in theaters. I think it went straight to DVD. which is what we had. And my brother and I watched it and we laughed so hard. Like Bigfoot, hysterical. Lester's Possum Park, one of the greatest moments in Disney movies. It's so good. It's about Goofy, a very underrated character in the Disney world. It's funny. It's about father-son bonding time. I do like how it's male. It's a male lead, like male dominant. It's not so much about a love story of a Disney princess who needs to find a prince or someone becoming king. It is just a road trip with father and son. Does Max lie to a girl? Yes. Does it all work out in his favor? Of course it does. It's a Disney movie. But I mean, like I said, Powerline. I have a Powerline shirt. I can do the perfect cast. It is one of the best. It is incredibly funny. The jokes are definitely for children and adults. It's great. I suggest you sit down and give it a watch and be prepared to laugh. The second one, not so much, not as funny. First one, the second one is called An Extremely Goofy Movie. So they were very creative with titling. Oh, real quick. So when we were watching as kids, Ben and I was like, Mom, can you buy us, we want a Goofy movie. And she's like, well, what movie? Go, a Goofy movie. What movie? Mom, it's a Goofy movie. She's like, I know, but what movie is it? It was very Abbott and Costello, like who's on first. But finally she understood and she got us a Goofy movie. And here we are. It's great. Actually, I'm probably going to watch that now. Me and Wilson, what's up? Do you want to watch a Goofy movie? No, you're just gonna sleep there. Okay, that's fine. Totally fair. So anyway, that concludes my top 5 list. I guess it's top 6, but number 1 could be shared between the two. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for sticking with me on this relaxed, laid back night. I hope you enjoyed listening. I hope you have a lot to think about. Again, tonight was more just about talking about stuff and thinking about the future and where things are going to go, where things came from. So have a wonderful, wonderful night or day or whatever it is you're doing. And I will see you soon. Well, I guess talk to you soon. You guys have a wonderful night. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Entertainment Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jessica. If you can please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Please go and give us a wonderful and beautiful 5-star review. We greatly appreciate it. And like us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We hope to talk to you soon. I will respond to any DMs. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.